Which is the best podcast, Sam? Just say it, mate, because there's no other best podcast, mate. Go.
Oh, look, obviously I love you guys. But look,
Then you got to say the brand name. Okay, go.
the Vetbolt.
Oh gosh. Wow, thanks, man. Thank you.
I'm Gerardo Pollard. I'm Hubert Hemstra, and this is the Vet Vault. Why does it sting so much when a client accuses us of just being in it for the money? I think it hurts because for most of us, money is really quite low on the list of what drives us. So much so that we often actively avoid talking about it in terms of our own earnings. Like it's a bit of a taboo subject. But the thing is, it is also about the money. We might be bright-eyed and philanthropic when we set out on our veterinary journey, but for most of us, at some point in your adult life, it's very likely that you'll find yourself thinking, hey, I could really do with a little bit more money. Like the old joke goes, money won't buy you happiness, but it's much nicer to cry in a Mercedes than on a bicycle. So, how do we earn that a little bit more money? Or a lot more? How do we get over that erroneous belief that there's just no money in vet? Our guest for this episode is Dr. Sam Burke. Sam is a practicing vet, former practice owner, super savvy investor and entrepreneur. He's also a former colleague and a good mate, and one of the most money-wise people I know. Note that I said money-wise, not money-driven or money-hungry or any of the negative versions of being someone who thinks about money. Sam just thinks about money in a strategic and constructive way, about how to earn it, how to invest it, and how to turn it into something not to worry about. Put it this way, if I have a money question, a conversation with Sam is usually my first step. So, we thought we'd have one of those conversations on the air and share it with you to see if we can help change money from a dirty word into just another word that we are comfortable talking about and comfortable generating. Oh, and on the topic of dirty words, Sam gets a bit excited about this stuff. So if you're easily offended by the occasional F-bomb, then, well, I was going to say then maybe skip this one, but you really shouldn't skip this one. Please enjoy Dr. Sam Burke. Wait. Before we start, just one more thing. It's been a big year with many changes for all of us. That definitely includes me. Lots of good things, some really hard things, and lots of growth, both in and outside of work. Our baby, the Clinical Podcast series, is a year old this month, and I want to thank you for your support and enthusiasm about it. I'm glad you're finding it useful, because I sure am. I've changed so many things around how I practice based on what I've learned from doing these clinical episodes. Some of it really fundamental, and I'm a way better clinician because of it. Not only better, but significantly more confident. Things like blood gas. I finally get it. Last weekend, I picked up a nasty stomach cancer in this lovely old dog just because of what I saw on the blood gas. And then rebuilding some really basic building blocks like fluid therapy, how I interpret my lab results, and basic surgery stuff like better choices around my suture materials or wound care, all the way to the high-level stuff like a foolproof plan for complicated DKA or a simplified way to understand and implement blood transfusions, better techniques for linear foreign body surgery or wrapping my head around sodium abnormalities, or those critically ill shock patients. I don't want to toot our own trumpet, but I'm gonna. I challenge you to find a more useful continuing education resource. And here's why I say this. Some famous photographer was once asked what the best camera was that you could buy. And his answer was, the best camera is the one that you have with you. That right there is why we do the Vet Vault Clinical as a podcast. You can have the most up-to-date textbook or the most comprehensive online course, but if you're not using it, it's no good. And I believe that a 20-minute episode that plants all of the new ideas and all of the tips and tricks and updates and everything you need to know about straight into your ear holes while you get on with your life is the easiest and the most reliable way to polish your knowledge and build your confidence. If you haven't yet, go to vvn.supercast.com. That's VVN for the Vet Vault Network, and try it for yourself. Okay, back to Sam. Welcome to the Vet Vault, mate.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm a long time fan. I'm a member of the clinical podcast, as you know, and listen to that every week. I love it.
This has been a long time coming. Sam's an old friend. We've worked together and done all sorts of stuff together, and I've wanted him on the show for a long time. And I think the reason is, Sammy, it's because you definitely list high on the list of people who I think have done well with vet in terms of success, and it depends how you define success. But for me, it looks like work because you like it, not because you have to, and find ways to be financially secure as a veterinarian. And I feel like you've smashed it. Like, you spend a heap of time at home with your kids. You've got your new businesses that we'll talk about that you're really excited about. You still do your vet work, but I know you do it because you love it, not because you got to pay the mortgage. And to me, I'm like, if a young vet says to me, who should I be like as a vet? I want to say, speak to Sam. Sam will give you advice. So let's see if we can get some advice.
Well, thanks for that. That was a nice little lead in, right? But I guess for sure, I have it great at the moment, but I did go through many years of very, very hard work before I could get to that point, and I think that I don't think there's any shortcuts. Like, if you want to have that cruisy kind of lifestyle, you're going to have to go through some pain before you can achieve that. And I think that level of sacrifice that you need to go through, maybe not so many people are willing to go through that level of sacrifice that's required, but if you're willing to, then there's no reason why you can't do very well out of vet and set it up and work on your own terms.
Do you also think that you need to have some degree of mindset shift? Some people, like when I was at uni, I almost quit vet school at second year when I found out how much I was going to earn, because I didn't think I was going to be able to raise a family on it. But then I became pretty kind of, not obsessed, but just really thought a lot about how could I leverage knowledge in order to, make the most out of it, not just be a veterinarian on the floor. I don't know. Like, was there do you think there's a shift that people may need to have? Like, from I'm going to come out and just do vet science, but I'm going to come out and I'm going to make this work for me and find ways to leverage.
Right. And you've got to find a way to make it happen, because there are opportunities to get ahead. And the traditional advice you get of just finding a job and putting your head down and working for someone else for ages. I mean, even if that's what you want to do, there are ways to make that system work for you better than just being a standard old employee. There's a way to value add and to negotiate. And like, I remember in high school, I used to write essays about how some Russian czar's son had hemophiliac or some shit, and, I could still write that essay today. I spent a lot of time doing that sort of bullshit stuff and not enough time learning about compound interest and savings and, how to negotiate and how to get ahead financially. And I think there is a mind shift. I was lucky I had a dad growing up who was in a concrete business, and he was a ruthless guy who, he's a ruthless guy still with us, but he taught me to just, you gotta make things happen. You got to go after it, because otherwise you're just going to get stomped on your whole life. So yeah, I was lucky I had that influence in my life. Yeah.
That's the story you told about. I just have a vague memory of a story of you on your knees scrubbing the shower with a toothbrush because of you pissed your dad off or something. What's that about again?
Oh man, yeah. Oh, look, he was a good dad, good dad, but he didn't let his kids get away with anything, I remember one time as a kid, I was probably 8 and I had an apple, and I didn't want to eat the apple. I just chucked it in the bin, and then my dad found out and lost his shit, How dare I worked my ass off for that apple, sort of thing, never chucked away another piece of fruit.
I kind of like that at the moment, because we had 6 kids in my family, and we just ate. We ate whatever was there because we didn't know what we were going to get fed. And then Lorelei, my 8-month-old daughter at the moment, she's eating a little baby biscuit, and she'll spit a bit of it out. I'm like, oh, no, get the spoon and put it back in. It's just feed it back into her mouth.
Is that possibly where that work ethic comes from, Sam? Because you talk about people don't want to make those initial sacrifices, and to be honest, I knew of Sam before I knew Sam. We have a mutual friend. That's how we met. And Sam had his clinic, and we'll come back to the story of his business, but he had his clinic in Sydney, and I'd hear stories about this mate of my friend he's such an idiot because he's got this clinic in Sydney, and they just working, they have no fun, and we'd all be like, You know, so there was much judgment of this couple who I didn't even know, who I thought was just insane because there's no work-life balance. They're just grafting away. And then now we're doing pretty well. So
We had a plan. Like, we've all met, those clinic owners that have owned their clinic for 30 years and they're bitter as fuck, and just had not nice people to be around, and they're over it and they're having mental breakdowns. And that wasn't going to be us. Like, I think I locumed in 50 something vet hospitals around Sydney and up the Central Coast to try and find a practice. I had a plan. We set out and we put it into action. And then once we found the biggest shithole as possible to buy, then it's just a matter of turning this massive shithole into a good business. We had a plan to get out. My wife was, she did not want to be a career practice owner in a tiny little GP clinic on the northern tip of Sydney. She wanted to have a different life than that. And not that there's anything wrong. I enjoyed it while it lasted, but yeah.
So how did you find like the practice? Like, did you go door knocking or something, or where is how do you find a good practice? Like, is it word of mouth, or is it like Gumtree?
Gumtree.
I wish it was on Gumtree. My strategy was just to work, get on the locum circuit, and I hated it. I didn't really like locuming or anything, but it was just the best way to meet people and network.
Do you specifically locum, Sam, to the research? Were you scouting? Was that your motivation to locum?
So you locumed to find, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because it's, what better way to find something? Pretty much anywhere I would work. And my wife was doing the same. She was locuming too, and she was working a ridiculous number of practices. And then one day I got a phone call from a woman who owned this, and she said, "Oh, can you come work for me? I hear you did some work that's around at a nearby clinic." I rocked up, and this clinic was just the biggest shithole. Like, it was, she was having a mental breakdown of some sorts. There was, in the waiting room, there was holes in the ceiling, and there was this big possum that would piss on people that were waiting, I literally saw this possum piss on a woman's foot, it's just waiting for the dog, and I just remember just smiling and walking away, because it was just what was going on. And I was doing maybe a couple consults a day as a locum there. I don't know how I was staying afloat, but it was in one of the best suburbs, one of the best parts of Sydney, right near the beach, very affluent. And she was having a mental breakdown. She just checked out. And all these other kind of local vets had looked at it to buy it, and they all walked away because, the building inspection, I had a building inspection done. The builder was like, "Mate, don't buy this place. This is a liability. It's just falling down. It needs so much work." And then everyone just saw it as too hard basket. And I saw it as the only place I could ever afford to buy it, because we didn't buy the business. Like, the business she gave us, we just bought the land. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And so she was.
So you bought the property you bought the building, and then the building came with it and the business. And
yeah, we just paid land value for the property. She just maybe we paid an extra 40 grand that it was worth to make her happy. And she walked away, and she just cut her losses and got out of there. And that was how we got in. So when I went to the bank, I wasn't going to the bank saying, "Hey, I need a business loan." I was going to the bank saying, "Hey, I'm going to live here. This is a residential purchase." The business was irrelevant to that transaction. Yeah.
So wait, I just want to go back to the plan. Okay. So what was the plan? The plan was like 5 years, financially independent, and you had an idea of how much you wanted to earn over that time frame, or like at the end?
Definitely. The idea was, it wasn't necessarily a 5-year plan. It was kind of actually more of a 10-year plan. But I was thinking, I'm 39 now. I was thinking by the time I'm 40, my wife and I, it would be nice to check out and move on, And then that got sped up because we were in the biggest tick zone, definitely in that Sydney region, where Avalon is known as the tick place, in Sydney. And so, it was a one consult room GP practice. Like, we're talking about a small practice, but during the heart of tick season, we could have 30 something tick cases in on any day, right?
Wow.
And so a ridiculously high tick turnover. And yeah, we had a 5 to 10, you had a 10-year plan, I guess. And then we turned it around and it went crazy. And after nearly 7 years, we got out of it. Yeah.
Wow.
My wife forced my hand, right? Like, she won't mind me saying this. She wanted to check out and move back to Fremantle in Western Australia, and she wanted to hang out and have a better lifestyle, we were, Sydney it's a huge place, as you know, and we're on the very northern tip of this peninsula. Our nearest friends were a good 45 minutes away. To find vets to to work for us, it was kind of like a rural clinic, like in many ways. Like people used to come at Christmas and I'd be like, oh, where are you guys from? And they're like, oh, we're from Sydney, you know. I'm like,
You're still in Sydney.
Half an hour away.
yeah, you know. And we used to have to do things like, to get vets to work for us, we would pay the second they left their home. We had a guy who drove 90 minutes and would say, I was like, mate, you're good. I want you working for us. We'll pay you 3 hours of travel time a day at your standard rate.
Whoa.
Which was a good rate back then. So he didn't care. He was listening to podcasts for 3 hours a day, getting paid, and then he'd also get paid for his time at the clinic. So we used to do things like that, and yeah, I got sidetracked then, but yeah, that was the plan, man. 5-10 years.
It actually looks like an Avalon. Is it Avalon Beach or something?
Yeah, Avalon Beach. Yeah.
That looks amazing out there. Is it nice?
Oh, it's amazing. Oh, it's a great suburb. It's very wide. They call it the Insular Peninsula in the sense that like it's wide Australia, right? You know, there's like just housewives with Range Rovers pulling in all day long, you know. But after 7 years of business there, like we had less than $2,000 in bad debts. So never used vet pay, never used one of those things. And
wow.
I like that. Yeah. I like the idea of a plan, because I think a lot of people enter into practice ownership or any business going, okay, I'm going to start this business and let's see how it goes. And I want to make some money, and I want, you know, there's not like how much is some money. And I've spoken to so many vets who work and they work and they work, and you say, why do you work so much? I don't know. Do you need more money? No, I'm fine for money. So why don't you work less? Well, so, and I feel like it's they never define how much do I need, what's my exit point, how much do I need in the bank before I think about selling or buying the next clinic or having some sort of a plan. You just wander in and sort of go, well, yeah, let's see what happens.
Look, I mean, how much money? It depends where. If I was still living in Sydney, I'd need a lot more than I need living in Freo, you know. But I think the other day, like, you need to own your house outright. And once you own your house outright, the freedom that comes with that is crazy. No rent, no mortgage, do whatever the hell you want, you know. And I think the other thing is, like, it's cool if not everyone is a business owner. Not everyone has that mindset, wants to do it. But I think that, you know, vets should be thinking from a very early age about consistently investing into other things. Okay, you know, like I think just owning your house, it's like we're never going to sell our house. I don't think my wife will ever let us sell it. You know, the kids are getting that house. So what happens to the value of that house is irrelevant for me and my wife. It's kind of a liability, to be honest with you. You own where you live. It's all about trying to, like, even if you don't want to be a practice owner, get investments, you know, just or pretty much 90% of your pay packet needs to be going into that sort of stuff, rather than just having, you know, what most people spend their cash on, you know.
Like nice cars that you drive into a creek.
I'm glad you said it, because I thought, should I give Gerardo shit about his fancy car?
I had a nice car. I had a nice car, Sam. And then Alex was having contractions with Lorelei, and we were stuck in the hinterlands around Brisbane. And I drove through a submerged road, and my car got stuck and got written off.
Oh.
So, but anyway,
those North Coast kind of like torrential downpours where it just got
exactly right. That's it. Like, road was fine. An hour later, road was high, and I ran. Yeah, but You said something before, right, about pain, about business, purchasing business, and so forth. I've spoken to a lot of people about, you know, who are looking to get into business, and it's like it's not just the pain of the work, but it's also the unknown. And sometimes when they know the unknowns, they get their questions. So they don't really realize that it's actually just they don't have the knowledge yet. But if they got the knowledge of what they might need to do, a business coach, or someone who's done it before, that can help through the process, that actually it's doable because someone else has done it before, right? Like was information, getting the information, something that was helpful for you?
I guess, yeah, you make a point. Like, I've got friends that I've definitely helped through the process. Like, I've got a few friends in Sydney that have bought practices, and I've walked them through the whole thing. And I even look at their books every quarter for them and help them with their business. I really enjoy that stuff. I think not everyone's mind works that way, you know, and I think definitely if you can find someone that's done it. There was one guy I locum for who was like a really good dude, and he gave me a lot of good advice. So I used to pick his brain a lot. At the end of the day, like if you can get through vet school, you can figure out it's like this is way easier than learning equine in fourth year.
The practice ownership thing, as you say, a lot of people's minds don't work like that. It's not, I didn't grow up in a business culture. I found it petrifying and intimidating. And as soon as people started saying you needed an ABN and tax this, and I just went, no, I don't want to do it. I think it's exactly as you say. The message is it's not as hard as you think. You can figure it out. But then,
and don't be scared to get help. But there are a lot of nice people around that can help. That don't want anything in return. You just got to speak up. The worst case, people can say no. I'm not going to help. Nothing lost there. You got to just send emails, contact people on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, and just ask for help, and you'll find someone that wants to help.
Maybe don't ask the person who's 500 meters down the road that you opened up practice right next to.
I actually became pretty good mates with.
Okay, yeah.
One thing I like learning about vet industry is that there's enough work to go around. Like if you run a good practice, you don't need to worry about a guy down the road. That whole you just put your head down and worry about yourself and just offer great customer service, and you're going to have more work than you need.
What about people though who go, yeah, no, it's just definitely not for me. I don't want to own a business for whatever reason, whether it's family or can't get the financial backing. Is it still possible to get ahead financially as a vet without practice ownership?
I think, definitely. I think you need to think outside the box though. Like there are a bunch of examples, of vets who maybe upskill in, say, ultrasonography, in imaging. Maybe they get their memberships, spend a bunch of time, obviously not doing a residency, but if you get your memberships in imaging, and then in a lot of busy practices, then you can become their in-house scanner. And that adds huge value to a clinic, like gigantic value. Mm-hmm. If your busy clinics are doing 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 day, and you're doing that and you're not having to pay $350 or $400 for the traveling ultrasonographer or referring those cases, if you get super good at it, then that's a huge amount of value for your practice. And then if you negotiate with the owners properly, you can hopefully see some of that back in your bank account if you negotiate properly. And there's other ways to skill yourself. Obviously surgical stuff, if you can just do a bunch of courses, memberships. I mean, just being able to just run through a bunch of big surgeries with no stress and cause your boss no hassle. And if your strike rate's very, very good and you're just that trusted person who can solve a lot of those problems for your boss, then it definitely is a way to do well. And there are other ways too. And then I think other things like salary sacrificing and just concentrating on super from a young age is hugely powerful. We all get older quicker than we think, and it's just such a tax-friendly place for money to be. And I think that vets should be trying to minimize their tax from a young age. Why pay more tax than you need to? And I think we can pay up to 25 grand in super per year, and it will save us tax. And I think little things like that can help people get ahead that don't have any interest in practice ownership. But you've got to make yourself valuable to your boss. At the end of the day, if you're lazy and just want to just chill out and do minimal work, of course, you don't deserve any rewards, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. It's kind of like almost you got to find your niche or value-adding proposition to the business. One that actually then leverage that the value you bring is not a dead end. Is like ultrasound or imagery is a powerful value-adding position in a business, because all of a sudden now you can diagnose surgical things. Because a lot of surgeries, like foreign bodies, internal abdomens, septics, whatever it is, are diagnosed on imagery, especially ultrasound, not on bloods. So if you can do ultrasound, all of a sudden you open up your practice to so many different surgeries that they've never been able to confirm before.
Oh, yeah. It's just, that ultrasound skill is just, it's the biggest no-brainer, I think. And the teleradiology guys that have residencies and then get into teleradiology, their starting salary is about $250K. And so obviously they need to get through a residency and all that stuff. But there are, I've got some friends that have no interest in owning a clinic, but have done very well themselves. You probably need some extra education than just, a standard vet degree.
There's a I think a limiting belief that we put on ourselves as well is that I have to specialize to be able to get really good at X, Y, and Z, or to earn more for this special skill. But there's heaps of things in a clinic in a busy GP clinic, ultrasound's the obvious one, but it's also becoming more and more popular and more commonplace. So like I used to be the only dude in the clinic who could scan, and I'd do all the scans. Now there'd be 3 or 4 vets who quite happy scan, and like where I work now, everybody can scan. But there's other skills that people just don't like it. You know, if you think of dentals or
full mouth extractions, like I'll never want to do that again in my life.
Or dermatology even, or niche sort of things to go. Nobody else wants to do it, but we probably don't like it because we're not that good at it. So get really good at it and be the guy or the girl, and then start saying, "Look, I'm generating this much just from this little niche thing. Let's take a percentage."
You're totally right. And you don't always need memberships even, right? Like, we've all met vets who are absolutely brilliant at GDVs and certain surgeries who have just got their standard old vet degree because they've just worked their ass off. They've done so many of them. They do, and they put the time in. And those vets are incredibly valuable to a clinic. And even vets with great people skills who just want to consult. I know some vets that just consulting vets these days, but they are just so good at consulting. Because it's a skill, you've got,
it is 100% a skill.
It's like you put in your personality to the test, and then do the clients like you or not? And it comes down to that. How do you make the client, do the customers leave that clinic feeling good about themselves, happy about themselves? And that is a massive skill too, just being able to consult like that.
Here's a common thing I come across in discussions, and I've felt this myself. So we talk about you have to be valuable to the boss to be able to demand a higher wage. And then you get vets who are fantastic consulting vets, but not necessarily surgeons, or they're not billing the high value stuff. And then they'll say, well, when I talk to my boss and they look at percentages and what my average earnings or average consult, then I can't negotiate a good salary because I'm not billing the giant, the TPLOs and that sort of stuff. But then they go, but I'm the one booking it. I'm the one that's not coming.
A lot of those are never going to get out the back without a good consulting vet
to sell it. So I don't really know the solution. Is it a question of literally keeping score of saying, look, here's the work I booked this year. So that you're ready for that negotiation to say, my numbers don't look that good, but I've kept track. I've got a spreadsheet over the last 6 months of the surgeries I've booked in. So tell me now that I'm not valuable to this clinic.
Look. My numbers, I'm a numbers guy, like numbers kind of get in my head and I can't get them out. But I could, just when I'm doing consulting shits now, like I'll still be thinking to myself, like just a quick sum in my head thinking, shit, I just generated 8,000 in blah, blah, blah. And I'm not the one doing those surgeries some of the times or whatever, but it is that skill of consulting is so important. I think you need to stand up for yourself and you need to, I hate it how clinics say, you're out for a performance review. It should be called a performance and pay review because you should never have to sit down with your bloody boss and talk about your performance without talking about money at the same time. Okay, because it's part of life. It shits me to tears when you hear of a nurse or a vet that gets pulled in performance review, and I'm like, well, how'd the money stuff go? And they're like, oh, we didn't talk money. I've been on the same pay for 3 years. But it's like it's ridiculous. And I think things need to change, and that's a bit of education in 5th year from just someone who just says it how it is and sits everyone down and say, look, you're going to get walked over. Your pay isn't going to stay stagnated for years and years and years unless you have regular meetings with the bosses and stand up for yourself and realize how that, the bosses, the employers need the vets these days more than you really need them. There's so many places to work. There's a shortage of vets. If you're valuable to them, then you should just farm around and move to whatever practice you need to be happy.
I do think there is also a certain degree of self-advocacy with your achievements. Not from a boasting perspective, but it might be that you might say, someone's like, I booked in 3 TPLOs this week, but you might not be doing the surgery, but you might be the one who actually diagnosed and so forth, right? Rather than just the silence of just a good worker who just keeps on tuning out and pushing work out the back to someone else, right? I think there is a certain level of it's of honest awareness of the work that you're doing.
You're right. Honest is important because you can delude yourself and go, I'm so valuable here, and then.
So want to know what you're into now.
Wait.
So actually,
Wait,
unless you
I
have
have
more
more.
questions,
I
Jules
just
got one more question.
It's interesting you say that, Sam, about we need to, that what you talk about. Oh yeah, I've been on the same salary for 30 years. Oh, we didn't talk about money. It's almost like it's a dirty word in our profession because we're this caring profession. We know that we don't go into vet for the money. We know that most people I'm surprised, like Gerardo, who didn't know by third year that what he was going to earn.
I didn't know until I got out of uni. Like I was like,
even worse than me.
I had people even in the back of the 90s. Spoke to a mate of mine's dad who was a vet about studying vet, and he just said, "Don't do it. You'll never earn any money." So I went into it. So again, when you're 19, you go, "I don't care about money. I just want to do something I'm passionate about."
Oh yeah.
So that's exactly that. What I'm getting at is we have this mindset, or many of us, of we're not even supposed to talk about it. When the clients use that line of all you care about is the money, it really stings because our values are just so anti-money, or not anti-money, but we're not allowed to talk about it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, talking about money is a massive taboo in many ways. Like, thing is, like, I don't think any of us got into vet to like be billionaires because it's just not the right space, right? Most of us kind of do love animals. Sounds like a cliche, but we do. We really get off on helping people, and we drive home after a long shift and we think, shit, I actually did something good for society today. And I still feel that. And that's one of the reasons I still work, because I feel that it's a worthwhile thing to spend my time doing. It's, you're not in finance, you're not just moving money from one place to another and adding no value to the world. You're actually helping people. But at the end of the day, we all need to live. We all have kids, or not all have kids, but some of us kids need to go through school. We all have houses that we need to pay for. And life's expensive. I want to go on holidays overseas and be able to afford that. And you can't, it's sad that a lot of vets just are on struggle street, because their bosses aren't on struggle street. I know there's the odd clinic that doesn't do well, but I've been involved in like the books of probably well over a dozen clinics. I found a few that haven't done great, but most of them are doing way better. And it's the oldest trick in the book that vets like pretend they're doing poorly, it's been a slow winter. Oh shit. Oh, it's like, it's been a hard year. I mean, it's 99% of the time they're talking complete bullshit to try and convince you that they can't afford to pay you more, or oh yeah, you've got to come in on Sunday, but we're not going to pay you time and a half. You should just give up your Sunday at the same rate as a Wednesday, or all that stuff, because most of them are doing really well. Yeah, as a whole.
So going back to is the mindset around money, right? And the dirty word, like, because it's kind of dirty and we should do it because we love pets and things like that. But I always, actually, when I moved into coaching, the coach that I had was actually made heaps of money on changing people's money mindset, changing the mindset they have around that money. And then the way he explained it is money is energy. Like, if you want to do good in the world, you can do good in the world to a certain degree with limited resources. But if you had money, you could actually scale your impact and do a lot of good in the world.
Right.
So it depends what you want to do. Money is kind of like energy. You could push that energy wherever you want to go. But it took away the dirtiness of the word.
Yeah.
But now it even rolled into my own mindset when I dropped my car off to the mechanic. Like, I used to say, oh shit, that was like $700 to change the oil and shit. Now it's like, dude, if it's $700, it's $700.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I stopped devaluing other professions.
Yeah.
And it created this freedom of just like, okay, look, that's what it is. That's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. Most practice owners have figured all that out. And
do you think, like, the other thing that I feel is that if you want to change your mindset, you got to surround yourself with people who have a different mindset, right?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who wanted to, I don't know, how would you change your money mindset? Because it sounds like as if you went through a lot of financial literacy and educated yourself in that area.
I think knowledge is power. And, how to get confident to do a GDV or cesarean by getting taught and by practicing and watching old videos and then getting in there and doing it. And like, there are books to read, there are podcasts to listen to. It's really education. You educate yourself in this stuff, you get way more confident talking about it, and you understand how that world works. Because there's so many vets I know who the whole money world is just like, it's French, and they can't speak French, but it's all about spending the time. You've got to educate yourself. Even if you find it so boring, just listen to podcasts in the car, just read some books, educate yourself, and then it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And then just the other thing I think is like when you start a relationship with a practice, from the day one, it should be clear what sort of personality you are. It's like a relationship in life, like a relationship with your life partner. The systems you put in place early on in that relationship tend to last. Okay, they tend to be consistent. And so, if you're just starting with a job, it should be, hey, with the performance reviews every 6 months, we should be having pay reviews then as well. We should be openly discussing. Okay, if you shift down to 7 and you're on a salary, but you've been so swept off your feet because the clinic's so busy, and you have to stay there till 9:30, 10 at night, which happens. I see vets doing this all the time, and it's very, very common. That's part of the job. That you shouldn't just be, you're on a salary, you need to stay there for an extra 4 hours to write notes because, that's the career you're in. You chose to be a vet. And it's like, no, like if you have to work extra hours, you should be paid for those hours. And so I think at the start of a relationship, if you get all that stuff on the table and they know exactly what you want, and that you're just not the sort of person that's just going to lay down and just let that stuff fly, it's much easier to then manage that ongoing.
What's your take on financial transparency in businesses and employees?
I think it's a good thing. Hugh, for example, Hugh, very transparent guy. I mean, he'll tell you fucking anything, He sometimes is a little bit too transparent perhaps, but, but he was very transparent. And Hugh actually ran a business that paid vets very well, okay? And everyone respects him because he did that. And he set systems up in place, and people loved working for Hugh because he was transparent and open. He made everyone feel like a team. He would tell everyone if they had a great year. And we were happy for him, and we worked hard for him because he was rewarding us. And Hugh could have been making more money, if he had that traditional mindset, maybe. But then again, like, I remember shifts at 3 a.m. doing a transfusion, which I probably could have waited until 7 a.m. But I was like, fuck it, let's just punch this out, and I'd find a donor, or I'd get the transfusion on at 3 a.m. And, and obviously better for the dog, got it in quicker. But, those little extra bits, like, I think transparency is key. We used to give our nurses Christmas bonuses, just checks. We'd just give them an envelope with a check in it. Okay, it wasn't like 5,000 each, but it was enough to pay all their Christmas presents, for example. And when you're living from week to week, like a lot of people do, that's a really nice, hey, thank you. You're a huge part of this team. You had a great year. Here's a present. I hope this helps you through this really expensive time of the year. Okay. Little things like that was my way of being transparent, and I think it's key. Yeah.
So you talked earlier about the excuses that bosses use, and in your opinion, lots of them are bullshitting. How do you call? And first of all, it takes a lot of courage, but how do you call bullshit on that? How do you have that conversation to go, or do you call their bluff and say, well, if you can't pay me more, I'm out? I don't know. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, look, it's hard. And I think this is obviously where most people struggle. It's confrontational, isn't it? And to kind of question someone of authority that's a boss. And I think it takes negotiators, because I think in vet school, instead of some of the total time wasting things we learned, there should have just been maybe like a 2-week course on how to negotiate. That would be so powerful for vets. And there's no way around it, Q. Like the old saying, when I started, I was on 38 grand. So you need to start on like 40 grand, and just like, no one gives a shit about what happened 20 years ago. This is 2021. There's a vet shortage and times have changed. The other thing is, your pay is already above award. What are you whinging about? I mean, who gives a crap about award? Bosses shouldn't even look at award. They can't find nurses. Okay. Like, for love or money, can't find nurses. Shit, pay them more, double their hourly rate. But they're not doing that. They're just thinking, it's a privilege to work at this specialist hospital. Whereas like in other industries, if you're like in most other industries, it's like, okay, we can't find people to work. We're currently paying them 30 an hour. Let's up that to 45 and see if it solves our problem. Okay. Chances are it will.
You do have to. The baseline need and thing you should address first and make sure you cover is finances, right? If you don't cover the money conversation with any employee, then it's very hard to go any further and to have build any more trust if they feel like as if they're not being remunerated appropriately to some degree,
Exactly.
right? So a money discussion is always critical.
Yeah, it's not always it's not always about money. Like a great way to make staff happy is just treating them nice. Like I used to buy lunch and coffee for staff. You go work for a law firm, and the big ones have a lunch platter there all day long. You never buy lunch, and so little things like that go a long way. Like Christmas presents, free lunches, asking about just being nice to them. And you hear a lot of bosses saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be friends with the staff." I mean, why not? Like, what's wrong with having a nice, friendly relationship with people and being part of a team? And so, yeah, it's not always. A lot of people are motivated by extra pay, but a lot of people are not, and they just want to be part of a very close team.
It's challenging. It's risky that this conversation you'll have a practice owner listen to this and go, "Fuck you guys! It's a hard job, man. It's we need to make money, and you're making us sound like the bad guys, which is not fair because it is a hard job." I mean, you worked hard, Sammy. How did you find the practice ownership? Well, you sold it. If it was easy peasy, then you would have just stuck with it.
It's like 100 times harder than being an employee. You can't compare it. And
after you just said before that it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's what I meant. It was the business, figuring out the business stuff isn't that hard. Like, how to get finance, how to fund it, all that stuff. That's not that hard. That's how to run a business, how to get a bookkeeper. That's what I meant. Like, that stuff is easy. Like, anyone can figure that out. Like, it's not rocket science, but the actual reality of running a practice is ridiculously hard. Just the stresses, the hassles that come up, the client complaints that come up, the fact that, when the shit hits the fan, it's always you.
Mm-hmm.
The buck stops with the owner when things are really going wrong. There was this freak storm in Sydney one year and the clinic flooded on Christmas. It's like, all these small issues. I had this tit case once, right? This very well-known woman in Sydney who dropped her cat off for boarding. My wife and I said we're never going to tell anyone this story, right? But this is just an example of the stresses that go into owning a vet practice. So this very powerful woman in Sydney drops a cat in for boarding, okay, and drops in. And the next day, the nurse, I can still remember the nurse running out of a little boarding room, running to see me. So Sam, Mrs. Blah Blah's cat, it's gagging. I said, shit, okay. And then quickly went and got the cat. It's got 2 large ticks on it, okay, paralysis ticks. It's got hind leg ataxia, it's gagging. A retching. That's not good. And so, I had to make a split decision. Like, the right thing to do is to quickly call the owner. Call the owner, phone off. She's on a cruise ship. Not the sort of person that you really want to call with bad news, right? I made a split-second decision to we just did everything we could to save that cat. I just didn't want to deal with the implications. My wife and I stayed up for 4 nights in a row, sleeping on a yoga mat next to this cat's ventilator. I got into the rhythm of listening to them on the machine, beep, 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 and blood gases every 4 hours, just everything we could do for this cat. I've never worked so hard in a case in my life. We saved that cat. This lady came back. I made the split decision not to send her an email. It was maybe one of those bad decisions that worked out to be a good one, but I never worked so hard, didn't sleep, still had to run the practice during the day. That's the sort of stuff when you're a practice owner, you got to deal with that shit. She could have wreaked some havoc for our business, the sort of lady she was, and they're the little problems that pop up, bunch of problems like that. That's just a regular thing.
Yeah. So it's not like you don't want employees to be exploitative, but practice owners are allowed to earn money from running the business for sure.
That's the point.
Need to, otherwise you're not going to do it.
It's hard to make that transparent, the amount of work that goes into running a business. It was funny the other day. I think one of our vets said to someone, he goes, "What does the hospital director even do?"
I often think that when I talk to Gerardo, I see your Instagram feed. You just at the gym all day, and
I'm just at the gym all day. That's exactly what I'm doing. But it is hard to to demonstrate exactly.
I think, you know what it is, Sam. The stuff that you talk about, it's a relentlessness. That what I found the work is the work. That's okay. All work's hard work, but it doesn't ever leave you. So when I was an employee, you go to work, you do your cases, you come home and you go, well, maybe I worry about that one cat or that one dog, but those are my worries. But I'm not worried about. But I don't worry about what happens if nurse X is sick tomorrow morning, or whereas even on a holiday when I was owning the practice, in the back of your head, even when you're lying on the beach relaxing because you're doing well financially, in the back of your head, there's still, I wonder what sort of shit I'm going to face when I get back home from this holiday. What's gone wrong? What complaints have I got waiting for me? All that sort of stuff. So there's a lot to be said for that. But you're right. I mean, it's a time. It's got to be a team effort. We've got to make money.
Yes.
You've got to make money being an employee, but you've got to help your boss do well as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's a team effort, and it's no reason why everyone can't win if the clinics run really well. I remember one time we very rarely went away. We went away for 3 nights, and we came back, and the head nurse was a very strong character, and there was a revolt. All the other nurses were threatening to leave unless we got rid of that one. I didn't actually see this come in, and I had a whole team that were just we can't work with anymore. Just a 3-day break is enough to just turn the whole business on its head. Yeah, it's endless stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 24 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. And I haven't had Christmas off for 10 years. But also, even on holidays, emails, text messages, you just keep coming through. You either decide to not read them and come back to 200 emails, or you keep slowly on top of it. And I've always been the kind of person that kept on top of it, but that meant that there was always on holiday, there was always business in the back of the mind. But it's kind of the price you pay, right? In a way, to nurture your little baby so that it grows into what it needs to grow into. But where are you now? What business are you in now? You still do some work as a veterinarian? How did you transition, or what are you leveraging your knowledge at now to?
So I'm still at Hughes Old practice in Perth, our emergency place. I still work. It's only, to be honest, one shift a fortnight that's locked down, and I do some fill-in shifts for people. Sometimes it probably averages one a week during busy times, and I'm not working heavily, but I do the odd locum shift for various practices around Perth too, just the odd casual one, but that's getting less and less. And I still love being a vet, but I just, about 4 years ago, I had this idea. I've always been into sneakers and running shoes. So me and my mate, Ross Johnson, we just decided to start tinkering around with running shoes, and just if we could try and create a really cool running shoe that was mainly recycled, that would be kind of cool and a bit fun. And we just set off it was a challenge at that time. And then it just one thing led to another, and 4 years of travel around the world a bit, and I learned about the industry. And, I spent about 4 years just tinkering with shoes, and we ended up inventing a really cool running shoe that's pretty much all recycled, and some of it's actually decomposable as well in the compost. And then we've just partnered with this company in Melbourne that can recycle and turn our shoes back into rubber mats and, things like that post-use. So our shoes are never...
Oh, you could post them back for
Once you're done with your sneakers, you post it to this company, to our recycling partner, and we're going to document it all on Instagram and show exactly in that shoe what that's getting turned back into. And we need to pay for that recycling. The company will pay for that. But, we called it Tarkine, which is this big rainforest in Tasmania that the government's just slowly logging and destroying. And it's the world's second largest temperate rainforest. It's absolutely a most amazing place.
Did you say it's the world's second largest temperate?
Yes, the world's second largest temperate rainforest. Yeah.
No idea. Wow.
It's gigantic. And I've been there a bunch of times, and I just love it. I love the place, and it's just so threatened. There's Tassie devils are running around, obviously threatened species, and we're just logging their habitat to death. And so we thought, shit, if we're going to do this, let's try and do something good. It's not just about business and money and stuff. And so 2% of all revenue gets donated to this big organisation in Tassie that are fighting to save that rainforest. And, and a pair of our shoes should never go to landfill. They never, ever, ever should that happen. They should go and get recycled. And then we're hoping that, other companies will follow the road and follow the way and start offering recycling programs. It's going to cut into their margins, but I think it's the new corporate responsibility. It's what companies should be doing these days. And I know it's completely different to vet, but I've got a bit of ADD, I think, and I'm always thinking of cool, different things. And I just can't sit tight. I wish I sometimes could just kind of chill out and read books for a few months, but it's just not me. I just kind of accepted who I am, and we're just having a lot of fun developing sneakers right now, and we're just going to see how it goes. I'm always going to be a vet though, because I do love being a vet. So yeah.
Well,
That's cool, man. I really love like the whole. What? Sorry, Hubert, you looked upset then for a second.
no,
like,
not at all.
He does this kind of like he's about to say something, and then I jump in. It's like, yes,
I'm not upset.
he's
Sorry.
like, no.
You go. You do your bit.
Are you upset? Are you fine? Fine or fine?
Fine.
Oh no, I really think that's cool. And okay, so did you use your business skills that you learned from vet to some degree to like what did you learn from vet that helped you with this side hustle now that's becoming a thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, the main thing is that I think people think that at different businesses they can avoid that whole customer experience and customer service thing. It's less intense. The customer, this sneaker company I find way easier at the moment than running a vet, because the customer service in the vet world is intense. Animals are passing away and there's a lot of emotions involved. The worst case scenario here is someone doesn't like the shoes and they have a whinge, and you just say, get over it, catch you later. But definitely that we have, our customer service is spot on. We right back to, we're getting 30, 40 emails a day at the moment, and we're just a startup, and we get back to these people within hours and give them really good, honest, transparent answers about where the shoes are made. Whatever they want to know, we tell them. And I think the biggest thing I've learned from the vet industry is that you can't avoid customer service if you want to have a business. It's part of it. We all kind of want to lock ourselves away and never have to talk to a customer ever again. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us want that. And that world doesn't exist. Just not there. The sooner you get over that and just realize that you need to develop your people skills and customer service skills. That's really what the main thing vet taught me. Definitely the business stuff. As I was saying at the start, like business stuff isn't rocket science. Like I really think if people spend the time, they can learn about capital and how much money you need behind you and what's your margin and how big's the market size and market opportunity. Like that stuff is not, you can get through vet school, you can get your head around that stuff in a flash.
Why running shoes? I don't think I've ever actually asked you this. Because you could have a million business ideas. Why the running shoe?
Yeah, I mean, when we were just finishing, I was out of uni, but in 2008, I've always been a middle distance runner, and me and my Ross Johnson, same mate, like we were stuffing around with websites back then, and we started this website called runnerstribe.com, and it's like it's grown into be a pretty big running website. It's not a great business or anything. But it's a huge database. We get millions of people to the website every year. We have, forget our email database. It's over 100,000. And so, I've just always been obsessed with running. I run every day. And so it was just a logical thing, guys, because I just go through so many shoes and I just chuck them in the bin. I'm just thinking, shit, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's where the idea came from. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. It's a typical thing. There's a better way.
Well, it's always trying to solve a problem, right? If you solve a problem that enough people have, then that's a way that you can, you should be rewarded for solving people's problems.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a problem. There's a clear problem there. And it's the same as when you go to buy practice, just getting back to that for a sec. It's like the traditional thing is to work 10 years at a practice and then the boss will be like, I'll let you buy in eventually. How often does that never happen? The boss makes up an excuse and just led you on for 10 years, right? But then also, do you really want to buy into that practice that's been running for 10 years and it's probably at its saturation point and its growth has really slowed? And do you want to pay top dollar? A GP practice in a major city might, if they're really, really well run, they might sell for $2.5, $3 million or something. You got to pay that top price because the clinic's already gone through its growth phase. And it's like, I think that line of thinking, I'm going to work for a boss for 10, 20 years and then he's going to let me buy in. That's a dumb way to think about practice ownership. You got to solve a problem. Like if you want to get ahead, you need to either start a practice in an area that doesn't have a practice because that's solving the problem, or you got to find a practice that's so run down, or there's an opportunity. Like of this practice in the southern suburbs of Perth that a few years ago, they only got into massive financial, we won't go into too much, but tax issues and problems, like legal problems, right? Significant legal problems. That clinic didn't go for it super cheap, but it was definitely a bit of a fire sale. They got a huge discount. And that person saw a problem, right? They said, and jumped on that opportunity, and they're doing fantastically well. I think with all this stuff, find a problem and then solve that problem, find the biggest shithole, the biggest mess of a clinic you can, try and take it off their hands for next to nothing, or start something in a brand new area.
Love it. Should we start rapping?
Surely you got some good books and resources that
Podcast.
that have helped you.
What are you listening to at the moment, mate?
Well, I get some books and resources. You know, I'm just going to allow him to. Which is the best podcast, Sam? Just say it, mate, because there's no other best podcast, mate. Go.
Oh, look, obviously I love you guys, but look,
Then you got to say the brand name. Okay, go.
the Vetbolt.
Oh gosh, wow! Thanks, man. Thank you.
Oh, look, no, you guys have a great product. Like, you know, I always say to you, you know, you have this amazing product there. Look, in terms of podcasts, I'm a massive history buff. I know I was bagging out the Russian Tsar before, but I love hardcore history.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best podcast ever. I love Dan Carlin and hardcore history, and I listen to all those episodes. And you know, vet stuff, we already know Vet Vault. And then on the business side of things, there's this business podcast called Business Wars, which is fantastic, very, very fun. Yeah. And they're my favorite ones right now.
It's good to hear business people recommend a business podcast that they listen to, they get value from, because that's a good jumpstart, like a head start.
It's great. And the guys there just tell a great story, you know, and they're really good at storytelling. So everyone I've sent that podcast to just write back saying, man, this is so fun.
One last question, Sammy. So we're at a conference somewhere, and why is Sam talking at a conference about running shoes? I'm not sure. But you have an opportunity to talk to all the new grad vets of the world, and you got to give them one bit of advice in a couple of minutes. What's your one message?
Definitely learn how to negotiate. It's something that just never gets spoken about. If you can't negotiate, if you don't have the negotiation skills, then life's going to be difficult for you, unfortunately. And it's just so more important than a lot of the other stuff. We all want to be great vets, and it's important to be a great vet and understand all the medical stuff. But, you know, to get through life successfully, and you really need to learn how to negotiate and figure out what you need to succeed and to support your family. I think it's an opportunity for you guys. You know, you should start a negotiating side hustle on you.
How did you learn to negotiate? How did you learn to negotiate?
I don't really know. That's a good question. My dad was in a concrete business, and I used to just sit in his car when we were driving to sports games, and he'd have his phone on, and I'd just hear him just abusing people, just trying to get his way. Concrete industry is a rough world, and he'd just be you know, just going back and just get in his way and negotiating. I think from a young age, I just listened into him doing that. And so I guess I had a good advantage because I had a dad who was a business.
You would have seen the extremes, roughness of negotiation, and then realized there's an art to it. Yeah. I think the crux of negotiation is like, it's almost like unless you just realize that unless you ask, the answer is going to be no. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Then the first question is asking, and then negotiation just rolls through with that. But there's no negotiation unless you ask.
Oh, yeah. And if you're known as that vet that asks, then before someone asks something from you, they'll be like, hey, we need to figure out what we're going to pay for this, or how we're going to, because we know the question's coming, you know. So it just helps you in every way, because before they ask you to do those Christmas shifts, they'll be like, hey, you know the question's coming, so let's figure this out beforehand, you know.
Yeah, and it's not about being pushy necessarily.
You don't have to be super pushy.
It's exactly that. Just asking. Again, from my practice ownership days, as an owner, you've got a lot to think about, and you don't always. I mean, you want to be generous and think about people, and you know, talk about wage increases or anything like that, but you don't always have the mental capacity. And then some people will never ask. So then nothing ever happens, because they sort of drop off your mental radar. And if they ever exactly. And then they wonder, they'll come up to you and say, hey, what about a raise? You're like, oh shit, you haven't had a raise for 3 years. Yeah, of course. Just open your mouth and ask. You might be surprised.
But busy practices like that, I think, yeah, I mean, years go by, like practice owners have like a list of 100 things they need to do. Maybe it's not popping into their head that they haven't given a pay rise in 3 years. It's just, you've got to remind them, you know. Yeah. Very nicely, you just have a chat, have a cup of tea, and just you know, just openly chat about it in a really nice, friendly way, and it gets you a long way.
Sam, that was amazing. We've had many of these conversations over beers, but I love hearing you officially. Thank you so much for joining us on the Vet World, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I loved it. So thanks for having
Good
me.
luck with Taka. I hope Santa brings me a pair.
Yeah, definitely. If there's any young vets out there that want me to look over what a clinic that they want to buy or anything, I don't want any money in return. I'm happy to help you guys. So just send me a message.
You should totally take Sam up on that. It's he's given me some sound advice. Send us an email at the Vet Vault, and I'll put you in touch with Sam.